I'm John Koza, a member of the League of Women Voters, originator of the National Popular Vote Plan for Direct Election of the President, and lead author of the book, Every Vote Equal, a state-based plan for electing the President by national popular vote. I'd like to present some information relating to the 7 consensus questions currently under consideration by League members around the country in connection with the National Popular Vote Bill. The National Popular Vote Bill would guarantee the presidency to the candidate who receives the most popular votes in all 50 states and the District of Columbia. Since announcement of our book 3 years ago, the National Popular Vote Bill has been debated and approved by 25 state legislative houses in 16 states, including Arkansas, California, Colorado, Illinois, Hawaii, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, New Jersey, New Mexico, North Carolina, Oregon, Rhode Island, Vermont, and Washington. The National Popular Vote Bill is currently endorsed by 1,512 state legislators. The bill has been endorsed by newspapers such as the New York Times, Chicago Sun-Times, Minneapolis Star-Tribune, Los Angeles Times, Boston Globe, Hartford Courant, Sacramento Bee, the Columbian, the Wichita Falls Times, the Anderson Herald Bulletin, the Fayetteville Observer, the Tennessean, the Sarasota Herald Tribune, the Miami Herald, and many others. The bill has been endorsed by organizations such as Common Cause, Fair Votes, the NAACP, Public Citizen, the Defenders of Wildlife Action Fund, the National Latino Congreso, U.S. Purge, and many others. The bill has already been enacted into law in states possessing 20% of the electoral votes needed to bring this legislation into effect, namely Hawaii, Illinois, Maryland, and New Jersey. The National Popular Vote Bill is also endorsed by a National Advisory Board formed to advance the bill, including former U.S. Senator Birch Bayh of Indiana, author of the 25th and 26th Amendments to the U.S. Constitution, and author of the specific version of the constitutional amendment that the League of Women Voters has historically supported for direct election of the President. Former Congressman and Stanford law professor and current Republican candidate for Governor of California, Tom Campbell, former Republican Congressman John Buchanan of Alabama, former Republican Congressman and Independent presidential candidate John Anderson, former Democratic Congressman Tom Downey of New York, former Republican U.S. Senator David Durenberger of Minnesota, and former Republican U.S. Senator Jake Garn of Utah. Nationally, public support for a national popular vote has been above 70% for decades. Support is high across the country, including small states, closely divided battleground states, southern and border states, and other states where state-level polls have been taken. The 4 major shortcomings of the current system of electing the president all stem from the winner-take-all rule. The winner-take-all rule awards all of a state's electoral votes to the candidate who receives the most popular votes in that particular state. Because of the winner-take-all rule, candidates have no reason to visit or pay attention to the concerns of states where they are comfortably ahead or hopelessly behind. Instead, candidates concentrate their attention on a small handful of closely divided battleground states. In 2008, candidates concentrated over 2/3 of their campaign visits and ad money in just 6 states, and 98% in just 15 states. This means that voters in 2/3 of the states are ignored in presidential elections. The winner-take-all rule also permits a candidate to win the presidency without winning the most popular votes nationwide. This has occurred in 4 of the nation's 56 presidential elections, a failure rate of 1 in 14. But because half of all American presidential elections are landslides, the failure rate is actually 1 in 7 of the non-landslide elections. Near misses are also common, and a shift of 60,000 votes in Ohio in 2004 would have defeated President Bush, despite his nationwide lead of 3.5 million votes. Turnout is less in spectator states because voters realize that they don't matter in presidential elections. This in turn affects state and local elections. Most importantly, every vote is not equal. For these and other reasons, the League of Women Voters has a long-standing official position, reaffirmed in 2004, that the direct popular vote method for electing the president and vice president is essential to representative government. It is important to realize what the United States Constitution says and does not say about electing the president. The Constitution gives the states the power to decide the manner of awarding their electoral votes. The Constitution does not mention, much less require, the use of the winner-take-all rule for awarding a state's electoral votes. Only 3 states used the winner-take-all rule in the nation's first presidential election in 1789. The winner-take-all rule is strictly a matter of state law, and it may be adopted or eliminated by any state at any time, because, as the U.S. Supreme Court has repeatedly said, the awarding of electoral votes is an exclusive and plenary power of the states. Nearly all of the major electoral reforms affecting the method of electing the president have been initiated by action at the state level. In the nation's first presidential election in 1789, only 5 states permitted the people to vote for president. However, since 1880, all of the states have permitted the people to vote for president. This fundamental change, surely the most important single change ever made in the method of electing the president, was not accomplished by a federal constitutional amendment. Instead, this fundamental change was accomplished by the method that the Founding Fathers built into the Constitution, namely action by the state legislatures. The elimination of the wealth qualifications for voting was another substantial change that was not accomplished by a federal constitutional amendment, but instead by the method that the Founding Fathers built into the Constitution, namely action by the states. Between the 1848 Seneca Falls Convention and 1869, the women's suffrage movement concentrated on passing a federal constitutional amendment. After Congress voted against including women in the 15th Amendment in 1869, a schism developed between the National Women's Suffrage Association that insisted that an amendment was the only method that should be used to win women's suffrage, and the American Women's Suffrage Association. The American Women's Suffrage Association endorsed an amendment, but then rolled up their sleeves, got to work, and immediately started winning the right to vote by using the Constitution's built-in method for changing the voting system, namely action at the state level. Those rigidly insisting on a constitutional amendment got nowhere with Congress over the next 50 years, whereas those working at the state level won the right to vote for women in Wyoming as early as 1869. Everyone now realizes that this acrimonious and long-running argument involving form over substance delayed the achievement of the goal of women's suffrage by many decades. By 1919, those working at the state level had succeeded in installing women's suffrage in 30 states. Then, thanks to their success at the state level, with almost 2/3 of Congress already being elected by women, the 19th Amendment was finally able to get through Congress in 1919, 50 years after Wyoming gave women the right to vote. The National Popular Vote Bill is state-based legislation that similarly employs the Constitution's built-in mechanism for changing the method of electing the president, namely action by the states. The fact is that there is nothing in the United States Constitution that needs to be changed in order to elect the president by a national popular vote. You don't show respect for the United States Constitution by unnecessarily amending it, especially when the founders have provided a specific built-in mechanism for making changes within the structure of the Constitution.